Welcome to the Zachrilege cast. Mandisa Thomas, welcome back.
Hi there, Zach. Thank you for having me back. It's good to be here.
I believe I had you on about a year ago. I don't know. I do like vague math. It was like episode 203, and this is like 239. And I made a New Year's resolution to do 50 episodes last year, but I didn't quite make it. So, and
Yeah.
time passes. Time passes, and you think, man, this community's gone through a lot of changes, and there've been some people who've been in the community who are kind of glad aren't in it anymore, and then there are just people who've been working hard for the 5 years I've been podcasting, and then 5 more, and that's just on one thing. So congratulations on Black Nonbelievers starting, getting to 10.
Thank you.
It's quite impressive. So how before we talk about like the conference and all that, so COVID times are happening, and you're somebody who makes a living being kind of an activist. So how did that kind of affect you, being maybe you're ahead of the curve on Zoom, but like doing that as your career, and then of course your activism that you do as well.
Well, of course, my travel schedule came to a screeching halt last March through May because I had in-person appearances scheduled throughout those 2 months. So, of course, as the pandemic started to rage and everything started shutting down, my travel schedule, of course, appearances were rescheduled, canceled, and such. And so that was a pretty harsh blow. It took some adjusting because, again, much of what I do is in-person engagement, public speaking. So that was that was tough for me in the beginning. But as we began to readjust into, conference call, video calling, Zoom, stuff like that. And then with the unfortunate events that took place in Minneapolis and other areas, there was a resurgence. There were requests to have me speak with different groups and different organizations who wanted to hear my perspective. They wanted to also hear me speak on what I usually speak of, which is about organizing within the atheist community and the Black Nonbelievers and what we do. So as the times adjusted, so did we. We also started hosting more virtual events as well via Zoom and other platforms. So during the summer, just instantly became busy again. It was almost like I was traveling and flying again, but I was doing a lot more appearances virtually, which people don't realize can take a lot out of you. So it really, really did. It's tough, and as hard as it was, we did see support increase in other areas, and it made up for what we would have generated in person. So we definitely appreciated that. And I'm the type of person who I can go along with a flow. I can adjust easily. I'm not, I don't need my kids to show me how to work the computer or anything like that. So, even if I don't know everything there is to know about technology, there are some things that I can learn and implement, especially being an organizer and a leader of an organization. So it really did. There were some, like I said, it was some rough moments, but we made it through, and we're still going.
Yeah, it's always good to hear when people are like, wanting to hear your perspective, but sometimes, it's associated with, oh yeah, someone being killed by police, and many someones, and it's strange to see the attention. Like, I was at a football game yesterday, and they put like social justice messages on the field, so it's like, oh cool, we're giving lip service. Although then we had the helicopters fly overhead, like, oh yeah, the military paid too. good to know. So it's a weird mix. It's like, wanting to get a message out, and then how it happens can be, I don't know.
Right, and it's very interesting considering that the NFL treated Colin Kaepernick so badly because he took that knee. That definitely wasn't lost on us. I just think it's very, very interesting how it has now come full circle, especially as the point he was trying to make is that these things are still happening: police brutality, racial profiling, racial injustice. And this is what he was protesting, and which is something that doesn't only happen to the Black community, but it affects all of us. And it's just interesting now to see them, get on board with racial justice, Black Lives Matter, and which is something that should have been happening years ago. But I'm not into sports like that, so but I do know that there have always been athletes who have took a stand again, in for issues that affect like current events or in politics and such. So it isn't anything that, and I think it's good when they do it. I do. I don't think that they should just be relegated to the sport that they play. And I do think that they should be able to speak intelligently on current events and issues that affect others. So it's very, but it's again, it's just very interesting to see how now the NFL and other sports organizations are getting on board with this.
I guess it's one of those examples where you're kind of shocked that it's been accepted in a way, but at the same time, you're like, well, can we get something positive out of a pandemic and out of police violence? Like, can we get some attention? Because before, the owner of the team basically told players they can't kneel, and basically before the game, like half the players were kneeling. So
right,
no one really has batted an eye now, because it's weird that this minor protest has been normalized.
Yes, that was, and it was so interesting, the rage that came from it. Again, when it first happened.
Like, is there rage? Huh.
Right. Yeah.
There is a little bit of rage going on the last week.
Right. Let's talk about let's talk about that rage and that historical rage that has actually had severe impacts on oppressed and marginalized communities. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that rage that was pretty unfounded, simply because who they wanted to serve in the president, the person they wanted to serve is going to be out. And so it's like, it's interesting to see a bunch of privileged people, storm and actually get so far as to getting in the White House. With all the security that they have over there. And that just shows you the disparity and why, like people like Kaepernick and others, and also why Black Lives Matter is needed, just the statement itself.
Very true. And now, talking about how like our culture has changed a little bit over thanks and not thanks to COVID. Of course, it's always the actions of protesters who you probably have never heard of who get the results, but they're not going to get a lot of attention for that. But you've been Black Nonbelievers for like 10 years. I don't know why I said it like that. 10. Yeah, come on, that's ridiculous.
Are you surprised, Zach? No, I'm just kidding.
All the people who've been in this, I'm like, who's going to stick around and keep working? Yeah, because it's not about making a name for yourself, making a name for the group maybe, but do you think things have changed in terms of reactions? And we'll start with the obvious question, like Black believers having to your group, like when they actually realize, oh, this exists and this is a thing, and it's not just white people, they're atheists, okay, but that's them.
What has been interesting is that there has been a lot more interest in hearing what Black atheists and the non-religious have to say now, because there are entities like Pew Research, the National Museum for African American Culture, that are starting to see the trends in religion within the Black community, and how a lot of millennials in particular are doing away with those traditional beliefs. They're very dissatisfied with the church. There's a lot of discontent there, and they realize that there are probably many more non-believers amongst those numbers. And so now they see an organization like ours that has been around for a while, and they realize that we have something to say and that our members have something to say about this. And they understand, there's a better understanding that we need that there is a need to include us in the dialogue, especially as even as they start to see, the right wing, or the very conservative wing, actually implement policies that are harmful to even them. So, and there is a awakening to, Christianity and its white supremacist roots, how it has affected people institutionally. And so now there is definitely more, there's definitely more willingness to discuss this, and they want to hear us, even though, years, and we still face challenges even being in these circles, but the fact that we are now able to engage and have this dialogue and create better understanding about our position, and why we don't believe, and the problems that we have with religion, Christianity in particular. It's been very interesting to see more of a want for understanding, and we've actually been able to find some common ground on that. So whereas before, many people would have thought, well, atheists don't exist in the Black community. Well, we do. we absolutely do. And more often than not, we actually share a lot more common ground. And I think now, especially as we move into, we're in a new decade, we're moving into a new administration. And again, as people are seeing more of, the conservative demographic, they're really starting to show themselves, and so we're actually getting more allies and understanding as a result.
Well, that's good, and let's go ahead and I was going to make a joke at the beginning. Welcome to your first podcast appearance ever, but of course, you've been on this one twice, and you've been on a few before. But people want to know about this conference. So, can you talk about like the 10th anniversary? What people have to expect? The cool fact that you get to do a conference, but you can do like a virtual.
Absolutely. Yes. So the 10th anniversary has now become a hybrid event. It will take place this coming weekend from January 15th through the 17th. And we will have a very small in-person gathering, in which we will follow the safety and social distancing guidelines in New Orleans at the Hilton New Orleans St. Charles Avenue. About half of our speakers will also be presenting remotely as well, along with folks who will be streaming the event and staying within the comfort of their areas and watching from their homes or wherever they are. So the 10th anniversary is going to be similar to our 5th anniversary, in where we will be featuring activists, organizers, authors, and allies within the movement that we have gained and we have worked with, and also their contributions to the secular movement. Some of the the Black folks who have material now, who have resources and literary references, and how we've all worked together. So it's definitely more of, it's building on that. in 10 years, and showing all the work that we've been doing over, in all this time, and how we have made an impact on people's lives. And certainly that isn't something that I just came into this community to do. I didn't come in saying, oh, well, I just want to make a change. And I mean, I thought about what it meant to openly identify as an atheist, how that affected me, and how meeting other people and connecting with other folks, even like yourself, Zach, how that impacted me, and how that made me feel, and how I really wanted to help others feel the same. And if they needed help with those journeys, leaving religion and leaving God behind, then I wanted to do my part. And it just so happened that in the 10 years doing my part meant starting out with a local organization to Atlanta that has expanded to a national organization, and that now has international recognition. So it is something I'm very happy about. It is something that I want everyone who is watching to be happy about as well, because there is still work to be done. The Black community and the Black atheist demographic is still very relatively small in comparison, and we want to continue that bridge building and that community building, and for people to understand our perspectives, especially on what's going on in our society, and that our perspectives are important, and the work that we're doing is important. Our presence is important. So all of that, it makes a huge difference, and it also contributes to our longevity as an organization, which we hope will span for years to come.
Well, you've had to you did a conference a couple years ago. Is it Women of Color Beyond Belief? Is that the film?
Yes, in 2019, we co-produced the first ever Women of Color Beyond Belief conference, along with Black Skeptics Los Angeles and the Women's Leadership Project, which is headed up by Sakibu Hutchinson. And it was an amazing event. We have had the opportunity to meet a number of women of color who are doing work in this movement, much of it which is volunteer, which it shouldn't be, but they have gotten involved in the movement and organizations, and our organization as well, in various ways. And it was the first conference of its kind to feature all secular women of color as speakers, and and also leading the event as well. Usually, it's your average conference, there's usually maybe 1 to 2 people of color, maybe 1 woman of color speaking. And in 10 years, having gotten to know so many of them, it was enough to build a weekend-long conference that featured those women who are involved in the movement. And that was also another event that was such a labor of love, but we love doing it because you got to hear the voices of those who aren't often heard and who deserve more recognition and credit than they get.
Well, the 2020 conference was initially going to happen, I think it was September. You can let me know if I'm off on that one. What made you decide to push that back, and what made you decide to do like a limited in-person conference for Black Nonbelievers?
Well, like most everything else, the pandemic affected all of us. We were also planning BNC Con 2020, but that the cruise lines canceled.
Yeah.
We had to rebook, and also the hotel where the Women of Color Beyond Belief conference is taking place was operating at a limited capacity, as most venues are now. And so we decided that it was best, in the interest of safety and taking our attendees and also our speakers' well-beings into consideration, we decided that it was just best to host the, push the event to 2021. And we also just didn't want to do a virtual event because by that time we were kind of burnt out from virtual events,
Hmm.
because we had actually not just been seeing them, but we've also been a part of them. And so we want what made that event so special was being there in person, was actually engaging everyone there. And so we wanted to make sure that we still had that authenticity of an event to take place. And so that was the main reason why we postponed it to 2021, because hopefully by then, by September of 2021, now that we know that there is a vaccine in place, now that hopefully there are better safety measures that have been implemented, that we can have a safe and socially distanced gathering in 2021. Now, for the 10th anniversary, again, taking people's well-being into consideration, but also wanting to not let this momentous occasion pass us by without there being an in-person component. We wanted to make sure we didn't just want that to be virtual either, because it's really special to see us all gather together, especially as an organization. But we wanted to make sure I went and toured the venue where the 10th anniversary is taking place. I was very satisfied with the upgraded safety measures that they implemented. And so we decided to move forward. We were hoping that it would be a bit larger, but unfortunately, the pandemic circumstances prevented that from happening. And plus, understandably, people whose health may be compromised, whose immune systems may be compromised. We took into consideration that they may not want to travel yet, and so that's one of the reasons why we definitely decided to offer the streaming option for those who still wanted to be a part of the event but couldn't be there in person. We wanted to make it as interactive and as engaging as possible, and really, this is probably going to be like the future for a while. That we will probably see a mixture of hybrid events, smaller in-person gatherings, but more people actually participating online and virtually. So this is a great opportunity to test that out and see how that will work for us in the future.
Yeah, I guess it's like a new normal, and hoping. I mean, we all remember going to conferences, and
Yeah, we
when's the
missed
last
it.
time? When's the last time you were at one?
Well, I spoke at the Free Thought Festival, I think it's 9 in Madison, Wisconsin, early March before things started shutting down.
Hmm.
So I was there with some folks, and it was a really, really good experience. And it was, ironically, I spoke on the Women of Color Beyond Belief conference there. So that was the last time I had been to an event of that kind. And yeah, I kind of do miss seeing my peeps, because whenever we do get together, it's a great time. We have a lot of fun together. Sometimes we commiserate together,
Hmm.
but it's just always good to see folks. And I know many of us are missing that right now. However, we do once again have to take each other's safety and well-beings into consideration. And again, we are definitely doing that with our in-person event. We are making sure that everyone follows the safety and social distancing guidelines. You must wear your mask, make sure you're using the hand sanitizer, make sure that you are not doing anything to endanger or compromise the health and well-being of others. So we will be monitoring that very, very closely.
Do you have 10th anniversary Black Nonbelievers masks?
That we don't have, but we do have BN masks. We
I
do
saw
have
those.
BN
Yeah.
yes, we do have BN masks, but not the 10th anniversary mask. I mean, we will be commemorating the 10th anniversary all year. So that is a possibility. But right now we have just stuck with the mask that we already have, because eventually that will kind of go back to what we've been we'll go back to our original branding. But for the 10th anniversary, we may consider a mask. But gosh, thank you for giving me another thing to do, Zach.
Yeah. Well, without the to do list, yeah, what would you have? But for the live experience, what's the time frame going to be? And I mean, you don't have to say like all the speakers, but some of the people who are going to be talking.
Oh, absolutely.
Give something to look forward to.
Yeah, so there will be a reception that takes place Friday evening, on Friday, January 15th. There'll be there'll just be a few folks there, and on Saturday we will start the main session starting at 9 a.m. Central Time, because New Orleans is on that time zone. And we are going to hear from speakers like Jeremiah Kamara, Daryl Ray, Gail Jordan, Anthony Magna Bosco, Sakibu Hutchinson, Bridget Crutchfield, Debbie Goddard, also Sabrina Dent, who's with the Americans United for Separation of Church and State. We're also going to hear from Chris Cameron, who is the author of Black Freethinkers, and J.T. Snipes, who wrote the first ever dissertation on Black atheists. So there's going to be a lot of speakers there. About, like I said, half of them will be presenting remotely, and I'm looking forward to the conversations. We will also have Dr. Will Judy, who's a medical doctor, and he will be talking about COVID, its effects, how we can continue to keep each other safe, and also how to navigate, for those who are into community service, how to navigate that, especially during COVID, especially if you are involved with like volunteering with helping the homeless and such. How do you keep them and yourself safe? So there's going to be a lot of information with the 10th anniversary. It's going to be fun as well. But we like to pack a lot of good information into our events and into our organization. So I hope people are ready for that.
Well, they better be ready. But yeah, if you're organizing this, I'm thinking it's going to be pretty solid. And of course, it'd be hard to not do this episode without talking about like local recent events. I mean, we're both in Atlanta, which is in Georgia, if you don't know people. And so we just had a couple of elections. We had 2 senators pass, and boy, we'll talk about billboards later. But there's some interesting billboards, peaches and socialists. Anyway, now everybody's giving a lot of credit to Stacey Abrams, who ran for governor, probably won, but of course our governor cheated. But he didn't cheat. He couldn't cheat well enough to give the current president the state.
Right.
What do you think about, like, is there enough credit being given to the kind of grassroots activists who helped Georgia? I'm not going to even say flip blue, like become the blue that it always wanted to be. And I know it's maybe an
Right.
Atlanta urban thing in a way, like, because obviously Atlanta's going to be very blue. But what are your thoughts on all this kind of activism and grassroots stuff? And can the momentum help in other southern states where there are plenty of progressive people? They're just not represented the way they want to be.
I absolutely think that it can help. And I do think a lot of credit goes to Stacey Abrams, even though, there are a lot of I don't think that the entire burden of change should ever fall on her shoulders, or any other person of color who should have rightfully gotten that position, or gotten that office. She was cheated out of that race. I would definitely agree there. And I do think that it was through I do think that she did go a bit grassroots. Some people here might not think so, but there were a lot of organizations on the ground that did contribute to, the voting, the voting efforts and the work and getting people registered and helping them understand who their candidates were, and also having them, encouraging them to vote their values, especially if those values are progressive and based in evidence. So I think there is a really, really good momentum. I think even when Stacey Abrams was cheated out of that race, it showed how far Georgia has started to come since, because Georgia has always pretty much been a red state. But like you said, you have your blue areas like the Metro Atlanta area and also in some of your other cities. But I do think that now there are more people who, now that they are reinvigorated and have a stake in that process and what it means to have more, more practical representatives. Because unfortunately, Georgia is one of those, those good old states where they're used to, their traditional quote unquote values and their traditional politicians. But now that's changing. That is changing quite a bit and is starting to reflect the change. And I think that with both the presidential election and with the Senate runoff elections going the way they did, it's and I'm just speaking from my personal point of view at this point. I'm not representing my organization, but I do think that it is important for us to to acknowledge that this change has occurred. It has taken place, and like you said, is being brought more to the forefront, especially as more diverse people get involved in the civic process. So there is a lot more to celebrate in that, especially after dealing with this crazy administration for the past 4 years. It will be very, very interesting to see how things go. And our household is affected on a federal level. My husband is a federal employee. I used to be a federal contractor. So having an insight into this has been quite interesting as well. So I would say for us, but I do think that it can be a really great domino effect for the future. And I think this is history making. It's precedent setting, and it'll be very interesting to see those areas, especially in other southern states, where there's progression, but there's still some hesitation and even fear of pushback. So again, I do think that this is the sign of better possibilities to come.
And I do appreciate that. I was asking, Mandisa Thomas, not, Black Nonbelievers, because nonprofits are, religious groups don't always do this, but nonprofits aren't supposed to actually have political opinions, and clearly you do, but your group.
Right. We can,
doesn't.
we can certainly encourage people to get, involved in the voting process, and in the civic. We encourage people to engage in their civic duties, but of course, we're not supposed to endorse one candidate over the other, but especially not in a nonprofit organizational capacity. But yes, as I am. I'm very optimistic about the future, even though you have people who are trying to push back against this new administration.
Really? Huh. Huh. Yeah, pushback. That's a minor term.
That's putting it lightly.
Well, why don't we have a discussion on our recent coup? I mean, clearly people are seeing that there's a very white nationalist side to it, but I don't think as much attention is being given to the fact that there's some serious evangelicals involved.
Oh, yeah.
This doesn't get attention just because Christianity equals good for most people, just the default.
It's very interesting. I love to remind people that the Ku Klux Klan is a Christian organization. I love reminding people of that because and it's very interesting to see the Christian nationalism. Those terrorists were holding up, Jesus signs. They're doing what their God wants them to do, and they think that makes them good Christians. And ironically, if there are other Christians who want to say, well, they aren't being good Christians and that's not what a good Christian does, well, if you point to that Bible, they can justify what they did, just like you can justify the good in what you do. And so I like to remind people of the dangers of what it means to when people say that they're a good Christian, because it is actually more detrimental to us than people realize. And it's nothing new. If you have been paying attention to cycles of of injustice and protests and what it means to fight for human rights, you'll find that the resistors often claim to be these good God-fearing Christians. And it's just very interesting to see how they justify those beliefs and hide behind them. And we're just seeing a resurgence of that. We really, really are. And I think there's been a serious resurgence, especially during this last presidential administration. People touting their beliefs, their fundamental beliefs, which has actually turned out to be more harmful than anything else. So hopefully people will start seeing it more for what it is and not giving it a pass.
Yeah, there's a lot of passes going on. I mean, for some people, it was really shocking what happened last week, but I feel like that wasn't like a universal thing. Like when this whole like January 6th, last ditch effort kind of came up, were you surprised with what ended up happening?
It was. I can't say I was. I mean, it was a bit shocking because I didn't think that people would actually be able to get in and storm the White House, right? I mean, it's almost
Capitol.
unfathomable. Was it the cat? No, it was.
Yeah, it's the Capitol, and there are people who were at like a Black Lives Matter protest months before, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there were cops everywhere."
Okay.
And I got arrested.
So it was the Capitol. Okay, right, not the White
House.
This
time, for this event, they didn't quite roll out the red carpet, but it was pretty close. The people did seem pretty much like, well, the president told us to do this, and we did it, and yeah, they were let in, and it was first invasion of the Capitol since the War of 1812, which good times.
Right, yeah, and it's amazing to see some of them actually roll through their history books and try to relive those times or reenact them, because that's exactly what it looked like they did. And it's interesting to see some of them being held accountable now, because in the days where it was safe to lynch Black folks and white, and also white people who showed themselves to be allies to the Black community, it's not that easy anymore, even though it's like they're trying to keep up that same energy. But it is something that they just cannot outright do anymore. So it is very interesting to see how this is going. Of course, you're not hearing anywhere near of the reports of people being arrested and actually being tear gassed or anything like that. Even is unlike what happened last year, where Trump decided to tear gas folks so that he could, read the Bible upside down, right? So he can hold the Bible up at a church, so in front of a church. So yeah, we're seeing privilege, we're seeing racism, we're seeing the disparities unfold once again right in front of us. And for those who are still surprised by that, many of us within the Black community certainly aren't. We've been aware of these privileges for a long time, but now is a time that 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 there can be better actions put in place, and to show the folks like this that they can't get away with it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We're in kind of a consequence-free time for people, depending on who you are. Talking about like changes that have happened over time, like the changes since I've been at least aware of the atheist community. That's a thing that books like Chris Cameron's teaches you, is like, oh, there's been a humanist atheist movement a lot longer than you think in general and in the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
But in the time you've been doing this, do you get more pushback from Christians or fellow non-believers?
It's an interesting mix. We still get, I actually have gotten a lot more pushback and have fought with more people within the secular community more than anything else. You kind of expect it from the Christians. You expect that they aren't to agree, they're going to agree with, that they will not agree with your position. And so you kind of, and I will either maybe engage in some civil discourse, or I will tell them I'm not going to waste my time. But I think when you're trying to build up a community of people who have left those other types of communities, and they're still dealing with the indoctrination, or they haven't shed it yet. So I think that's much of what we battle against. And also, we still have to deal with the folks who want to know why there's an organization like Black Nonbelievers. Also, those who expect that we are just going to educate them on everything, but oh yeah, so there's a lot of work, there's a lot of labor that they expect us to do, and for it still to be like unpaid, or that they appreciate it, but they don't realize that this is work and that it needs to be supported. So I think that has been the biggest challenge that I've faced, is really trying to get people to not just understand the work, but also support it, because it's needed. And there are many, I appreciate that we've been able to help people understand what it's like for Black atheists within the Black communities and also the secular communities, and how we have to navigate those worlds. So, but it is also, once again, a challenge at times when we are encountering people who are still learning. They're coming out of, again, that indoctrination, but they're still victims of it. And so sometimes it can be a harsh wake-up call for them, but one that's necessary. And it's been quite the interesting experience.
That's a charitable way to put it. So what was it like getting Harvard Humanist Award last year?
It was pretty amazing, but it was also, it also felt surreal to me, because I know that there were some very, very notable people who had received that award previously. And I thought it was amazing that, any one of us who were the co-recipients, Takivu Hutchinson and Ijoma Oluo, very much deserve that honor, on our own, considering the work that we've been doing. But I do think that it was great that, because I think we were the first Black women to have ever received this award. So it was monumental.
Is it usually multiple people getting it? Is that how it works?
No, it's usually just one person. Usually just one person who gets it. And but I think
it's like, it's good recognition for multiple people, but it's like it's hopefully you each got an award, you don't get like,
yes, we did
each, right?
Yeah, we did each get our own award. It wasn't co-branded like that. We each got our own. So that was amazing. And I think it did do a lot to help elevate our profiles, elevate our work, and also to get people to support it. That was pretty great. So I definitely do appreciate that. I always feel weird when I receive recognition, because I never got involved for the recognition. So there are times where I feel like, well, Sometimes it feels odd, but I mean, I definitely am honored to have received it, but it just still feels, and that's just me. That's just a me thing. It's nothing against the award itself. Sometimes I just feel like, wow, it's just so odd.
Well, it's tough to bask in the glow of your own awesomeness, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, yes, it is.
And just take a few seconds and then, yeah, get back to your normal stuff.
Right, right.
So you've been, hopefully I get this right, doing some working out, trying to stay in shape. So when you do that, are you a listen to music type? Or you, sometimes I listen to like podcasts or ebooks, but I didn't know what like gets you kind of pumped up when it's time to do that.
Oh
And
yeah, I'm a
if it's a
music
challenge
person
for
all
you, if
the
it's something
way.
you like doing.
Well, I made a vow, made a promise to get both my physical health and mental health in shape last year.
Hmm.
And despite all the circumstances, I was still able to keep up with it because I am diabetic and I am a caregiver. So I needed to make improvements. And over the years, I had gone back and forth to the gym and had restarted an exercise routine. But last year was when I decided to firmly stick with it. And for me, I love listening to music when I work out. What I did differently though this year was to listen to different playlists, sometimes I listen to my jazz playlist, which can be very energetic. The type of jazz I listen to, it varies, but some of it is, it is very up tempo. I listen to I'm such a music head and a music buff. So sometimes I'll switch it from my hip hop playlist to just some easy listening. But yes, I am the type of person who does have to have music because first of all, it makes the time go faster. And when I'm listening to some of my favorite music, it helps me enjoy the workout more. And it's helped me to actually appreciate the work I've put into it, and which has been really great.
Well, you mentioned, so if you don't mind sharing, because you like to share, like what have you done for your mental health? Because I know it's been a challenging year for me and for most of Americans.
Yeah, so actually started seeing a therapist. I now have a therapist that I talk to once a month, and it was through um, talking to a therapist that I was actually able to start setting boundaries with people that I knew I had to. I already knew I needed to do it, but I actually had started doing it. And it was helpful to have that reinforcement of knowing what it was that I needed to do, understanding what the issues were that were preventing me from doing it previously, but also making that commitment to myself so that I could better commit to the work that I'm doing and also to the people around me. So that was very helpful in procuring a therapist as a start to that. And then once I did that, I really started to set the boundaries that I needed to. Like there are times where I may not talk to anyone at all. All I may do is just kind of chill out or listen to my music, and I'm okay with that. Like I absolutely do not need to be around people, and I realize that there are just certain people who aren't worth my time, and I had to become okay with with letting them go, and not guilting myself, and definitely not letting them guilt me into making me feel as if I owed my time and myself to them. So that was very, very helpful to my process and my mental health.
What do you think is like someone who works for a nonprofit, who started a nonprofit? Do you think people don't always value your time?
Yeah, I know people who do, but then there are a lot of people who don't, or they take that time for granted. There are a lot of people who think that you're always supposed to just be available for them at any given time. And I love engaging people. I am very friendly. I'm very amicable, and I really do enjoy that. I would never take that away, but there are times where I realized that I was probably giving too much, and to people who were not either not reciprocating, or they didn't realize that, perhaps they were taking up too much of said time. And so, I kind of had to, again, set those limits for them and myself.
So, how many Black Nonbeliever groups are there now around the country?
Well, right now we are still listed at having 13 affiliate groups. The most active are, of course, Atlanta, our Washington, D.C. affiliate, Charlotte, North Carolina, um, and Detroit, Michigan, and New York City, which is my hometown. So we have 5 very, very active affiliate groups across the country. But right now, of course, with the pandemic, it's been very challenging for organizers everywhere. And so and as we have taken to more virtual events, that's how we're able to still reach out to our other affiliate area, other area affiliates. So trying. We're hoping that this year will be an improvement on people's, emotional states and such. But yeah, we're right now we still have 13 active affiliates.
And when you're on the Atheist Experience, I believe one of the callers asked if you were a gospel singer.
Yes, that was hilarious. Yeah, someone asked if I was the Mandisa from, the Mandisa from American Idol, who is the gospel singer, who ironically came under fire for making anti-LGBTQ remarks some years ago. So yes, but it's just very interesting because I know that Mandisa is not a common name within the United States. It's a South African name, but even though interestingly enough, there is a local representative, I think in Fulton County, whose name is Mandisa Thomas. And yeah, I remember when I was still working at the CDC, someone asked, was I running for office? And I said, no. And so they pointed me to the Mandisa Thomas, who was running for a local seat. And I was like, wow, what a coincidence. And the one thing that it reminded me of was the fact that my family members used to put that H in my name, Mandisa, because they really didn't know how to pronounce it. And so I thought, wow, it could have been. We actually almost look similar. So, it was very, and I've also gotten that over the years. People, I've often got that. Well, I look like someone that someone else may know, or I look like someone they know and such. But I have had the occasion to know and meet other Mandisas, but it's still it's still a very uncommon name in the United States. And so I just thought it was very interesting that yes, they asked if I was the Mandisa from America, from the gospel singer. No, not at all.
Well, what is it like? I mean, you do a lot of interviews, you do a lot of appearances, but to do like the Atheist Experience, it's a bit of a different creature. Of course, Matt's yelling at the Christians, but to actually like kind of debate with Christians, what is that whole experience like?
It was just very interesting to hear the callers, and like we were saying yesterday, the excuses that they make for what they believe, and the fact that they will actually try to argue you down because they believe it. I mean, it is just so it's actually kind of sad in a way. It's actually, I mean, I could not. I've seen people do like the mental gymnastics and make certain excuses, but I'm just like, wow. I mean, those some of those callers were among the most bizarre that I have ever come into contact with, and so I just I was astounded. I was pretty astounded to hear that. And my thing is, look, if as long as you are not hurting anyone else, you can believe what you want, even though we encourage people to not just simply believe anything, whether it's a God or anything else. You're not just supposed to take anything at face value. You're supposed to question everything. However, if that's a belief system that you choose to stick with on your own time, then go for it. But you do not have the right to try to challenge us simply because we don't believe anymore. And when we provide a valid basis and valid premises for why we don't believe, you don't just get to incredulously challenge us, especially with subpar excuses or reasons. And so that to me was I don't have the patience to deal with that on a regular basis. I prefer the building within our community, and also engaging progressive minded believers, those who will not try to argue us down, and we can find common ground outside of our perspectives. I appreciate those believers a whole lot more than the ones who try to make those excuses and who will try to double down on it simply because they're astonished that we don't. So my hat goes off to the regular hosts of the Atheist Experience, and people who can do that all the time, because to me it's exhausting. I mean, life is exhausting enough. I don't find much joy in, because after a while it stops being funny, because it's like you really think like this, like you really do believe this, and there are times where it's so sad.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the kind of the Christian arguments that happen on that show remind me a lot of people supporting our current president and some of the anti-social justice people who want to play like they're in our community as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you are going to an event this week. You're going to something in person. And you mentioned that even though you aren't a gospel singer, you do like to sing. So if karaoke is available, will you partake? And do you have some
Yes.
go-to tunes?
Actually, well, actually, I am a classically trained singer. So, I don't sing fully by profession, but I am a trained singer. But yes, karaoke is absolutely one of my favorite activities. And when we did the cruises, the past 3 years, up until 2019, that was one of our favorite things to do. One of my go-tos is "Ain't No Stopping Us Now." I've sang that for Sunday Assembly before. Also, I mean, I just have, I've actually kind of switched it up a bit, but that usually tends to be a go-to. "Killing Me Softly," the Roberta Flack version, tends to be another favorite of mine. So, but it's fun, to get in the groove of like doing karaoke, and I can't wait till we're able to do that again, because it really is a lot of fun. It's a very good. It's actually a good group building activity as well. For those who are familiar with and who attended the Recovering from Religion Fall excursion back in 2019, I led the karaoke session, which was great. And, it really kind of got people out of their skin. There were people who missed the singing and, in their churches, and, just kind of having that activity. And so, it helped them realize that they can still partake in that and do that fun stuff, even though they don't go to church anymore. It isn't a religious activity. It isn't something that has to be a religious experience. It's a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I actually I feel like I refound my voice, rediscovered my voice. Through being involved in the community and starting to sing again, even though it's on a limited basis. But yeah, that's been a lot of fun for me as well.
Well, that's good, and hopefully that'll happen. Although I don't know if they'll do it at a hotel, but maybe smaller gathering, they can pull it off.
Yes.
Because I remember doing it at a cruise I was at a year and a half ago, and it's like, oh yeah, it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard to do in a Zoom call experience doing like karaoke. I don't know if that really works as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Although,
everyone has to mute. They have to. They have to
well,
mind who they're. Yeah,
mhm.
it's a lot. So, but yeah, it's definitely more fun in person. But we try to do the best we can. So.
Well, Mandisa, as always, it's been amazing to chat with you. So, how can people, find you, find Black Nonbelievers, and all links will be available in show notes. But yeah, get to this week's conference and check it out.
Absolutely. You can definitely look us up on our website at blacknonbelievers.org. It does revert to a .com, but that's kind of a long story. We do have the domain name for .org, and we're working on fixing that. You can also find us on Instagram at binonbelievers, on Twitter at binonbelievers as well. Actually, Instagram is binonbelievers Inc. Twitter is B Nonbelievers, and the B and the N are capitalized. We also have a YouTube channel at Black Nonbelievers Inc. You can also find us on Facebook at Black Nonbelievers. We have a public page and a private group. And you can also find me. I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Mandisa Latifa, for those who may want to support that work. And that's another thing I'm appreciative of, those who have kept up their patronage, because I do a lot of writing there. I may share some videos. I share some insight into what goes on in my life and my thoughts on community building there. And hopefully that has helped folks. So and that's in addition to running Black Nonbelievers on still a volunteer basis. So there's a lot of ways. So those are all the ways you can find us and find me. And I hope you take a look and support.
And for the YouTube people, go to Black Nonbelievers and get damn t-shirt, people. Support.
Yes, you can go to our website. Yes, order a shirt, order some merchandise. We have some cool swag. So yes. And thank you, Zach, for sporting your shirt.
Back when we did conferences, that's the thing that amazed me. I think it was the Chattanooga one, Secular Saturday. And it was just the amount of stuff you had. Because I have like 3 shirts that I've ever bought for this show ever, but you have like koozies, and you have a bunch of options. And of course, masks. That's a
yes. Now we have masks.
Now it's like fashionable.
Yeah, we have bumper stickers now as well. So yeah, we have quite the array. And the one thing I don't apologize for is doing this with a sense of style, because I think that is important. How we brand, how we market, and how we engage really is important. And the fact that we can be colorful, we can be lively, and we really, really can make a good presentation along with our message. And so it really does make a difference.
Do with style. I might not be able to, but others can. So it's I'm jealous. So, well, thank you, Mandisa, for taking the time, and have a good time this weekend.
Thank you. I most certainly will. It's going to be a lot of work, but I know it'll be worth it.
Oh, definitely.